Hello, hope you're having a great day. This is the Season Long Podcast in support of the YouTube channel Season Long Baller. So here we talk about all things Season Long Baller, NBA 2K23, how our simulated season is going along. As you know, we mirror the season of the actual NBA Washington Wizards. That is the team that we have put our player build, number 4, Jaymont Summerz, a point guard out of William & Mary. That is where we have put him on the Wizards. So we have been mirroring the actual Wizards schedule. We play 6-minute quarters. So some of the stats that you will see are a little bit reduced, of course, because of those 6-minute quarters. And we, of course, every time the Wizards play, we are playing. So last week, getting right on into it, we took on the Mavericks, which I know the Mavericks and the Wizards in real life does not sound like a great matchup. However, in our league, in a lot of the metrics, the Mavericks are the third-ranked team in the power rankings in our league. Right now, the Wizards are first. So this was creating a pretty good matchup and, as they say, maybe a NBA Finals preview, perhaps. We'll see about that, of course, as we get later on into the season. But that turned into a 68-58 victory for the Wizards, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Then, as I had jokingly said during the games, we did the Texas two-step and played the Rockets the very next night. That turned into a 93-79 victory for the Wizards. And then later in the week, 3 days later, we took on the Pelicans, our second matchup with the Pelicans, and defeated them 84-77. So taking a closer look at that Wizards-Mavericks matchup, Spencer Dinwiddie was the leading scorer with 13 points. The biggest thing here is Doncic, which is obviously the biggest thing all the time when you talk about the Mavericks. The first time we played them, which was a 77-67 victory, I know I kept messing that up during the games, but the first time we played them back in November, a 77-67 victory for the Wizards, Doncic was injured. So just a 10-point victory without Doncic, without that second ball handler, because Spencer Dinwiddie did all the ball handling, and when he was out of the game, you could tell the Mavericks were struggling. But this time, Doncic played. This time, the game was in Dallas, as opposed to earlier in November, it was in Washington. And the Wizards get out with a 68-58 victory. And as you see, the Mavericks shot poorly, and Doncic especially was only 5 out of 17 from the field. I don't think if we play the Mavericks again, that's going to happen. But the Wizards get away with a 68-58 victory, which, as I mentioned during the game, kind of on the low side in terms of Wizards games. Our scoring always seems to be just a little bit higher than that. We followed that up the very next night against the Wizards. The most notable thing here is, of course, Summerz had one of his better shooting games of the year, going just 6 out of 7. But his third double-double of the season, going 14 points and 10 assists. And having 3 double-doubles puts you up kind of among the league leaders in double-doubles. We'll probably talk about that one next week. And then also notable, Porzingis continues his stellar play. Had a couple of blocks, went 8 out of 11 from the field, and had 17 points. Just a quick look here. As you see, Summerz is second in the league in scoring at 16.9 points a game. No, we're not going to talk about how much I shoot. And leads the rookies in assists and is among the league leaders in assists at 4.8 a game. Just another quick note. You may notice we've talked about it. The last week of December, Jaymont Summerz was the player of the week. But a couple weeks ago, we did not mention, or I don't think we put enough attention on the fact that a couple of weeks ago, Porzingis was the Eastern Conference player of the week. And wouldn't you know it, in that same week, Luka Doncic was also the player of the week in the Western Conference. If you look a little bit up and, during the season, you can see that Doncic has won a few, Joker has won a few from Denver, and they have been basically dominating that MVP conversation, which we talked about last week. Again, taking a look at now your all-star voting. No surprise in the Western Conference in the backcourt that Doncic is first. He is followed by Ja Morant. And you know what Morant did to us back in, October or November, where he basically lit us up for 43, which I think is still the highest point total this season by a player. So, of course, I got ate up that particular day, but, who doesn't Ja Morant eat up? In the front court voting, no surprise there. Joker is first, LeBron is second, and Kawhi Leonard is third. Going to the Eastern Conference in the backcourt, again, all-star voting. Trae Young is first. And again, we have not played Atlanta yet. We should be playing them sometime in the next few weeks. But despite the fact that they are in our division in the Southeast, we have not seen the Hawks yet. So I can't comment on how bad Trae Young did or didn't do against us. You will note, however, in the 9th position in the voting is our player build, Jaymont Summerz. And in the front court, as you see, first, of course, is Giannis, and second is Embiid. Third is Durant in the Eastern Conference here. But Porzingis is 5th. So it'll be interesting to see if he manages to squeak on into the All-Star game. Wanted to take a quick look at the injury report. I know I kept talking about Finney Smith again in that Dallas game where was he? He did play in the first game, which I had forgotten. Again, 77-67 Wizards victory. But in this second game, he was out. Now, this injury report is from a couple of weeks ago, so I don't think he had been injured yet. But we had mentioned how Mo Bamba is out for the season for the Magic, and obviously he was not in that game that we played recently against the Magic where we lost. But it is now 4 to 6 months for Bamba, and more significantly, Jason Tatum, who was out with the Achilles weeks ago, and was out for the season. As you see, now his duration is 4 to 6 months. So with this being January, very late January, would that put Tatum in a possible return for the playoffs in May if the Celtics make the playoffs? I mean, at first it was season, so maybe there's an outside possibility. We'll have to see if he's able to come back. And again, this does illustrate the differences between our league and obviously real life, where Bamba is healthy and hopefully he stays that way. Tatum is healthy. Hopefully he stays that way. And of course, Torrey Craig from the Suns, broken vertebrae. That sounds painful. Hopefully he stays healthy as well. But Thibault, Brown, Favors, as you see, are not injured in real life, but of course are injured in our league. So right now, we'll go ahead and take a look at the Jaymont Summerz Player of the Week. I think we'll go with that alley-oop to Porzingis against the Mavericks. Doncic gets a screen from Powell, tries to throw up a oop that was really misplaced, but it looked like it was stolen by the Mavericks after we got the misplaced alley-oop. Summerz, however, shows how it's done. Good alley-oop to Porzingis after the Mavericks failed on theirs. Nothing like an alley-oop to get you some momentum, right? All right. Now, taking a look at your power rankings from the, or actually, this is team standings in the East. Right now, the number 1 seed is the Wizards at 37-12, followed by the Sixers at 31-17. The aforementioned Atlanta Hawks, whom we have not played yet, are 31-19. The Cavaliers, who destroyed us back in October, are number 4, and the Heat are number 5. And that's your top 5 teams in the Eastern Conference right now. Taking a look at what we've got coming up in the next week, we start the week off on Monday against the Spurs. So later on today, we will be taking on the Spurs. Make sure you check out that video. We'll follow that up a couple days later on Wednesday against the Pistons. We have played the Pistons once already. We did defeat the Pistons earlier. 2 days later, we get our first look at Dame Dollar and the Portland Trailblazers at home. We've been on the road quite a bit here, but this breaks up the travel for just a moment. And then back on the road, back-to-back. That'll be a tough ask as we will travel back up the East Coast to take on the Brooklyn Nets in Brooklyn. That's always a tough game when you've got to face Kyrie and Kevin Durant. And one of the things I do like about this version, 2K23, as opposed to some of the older versions that I played, the stars take shots. As we saw a little bit earlier, Doncic took 17 shots in this game. When we faced the Golden State Warriors, we talked about it in the podcast last week, in podcast number 12, where Curry took 19 shots. Curry probably took a lot of shots. I mean, took some bad shots in there too. But as opposed to sometimes I had played on 2K some years ago, and someone like Durant would take, say, 6 shots in the game, and that computer-created player would shoot the ball like 11 or 12 times. And obviously, that's not how it should be. So when you're facing the Nets, Kyrie and KD obviously should be getting a majority of the shots. And so far, we have won our matchups with the Nets. One other note, you see, the day after the Nets game, On Sunday is the All-Star, the team captains pick their teams. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. That's going to do it for yours truly, Season Long Baller. Always appreciate when you watch and listen to the podcast. This is podcast number 13, where we're covering things, and we do this every Monday, where we cover 2K information. We cover basically what's happening in our league, how's Jaymont Summerz doing, and you get a summary of all the things we're doing, and this goes in hand with the games we're playing during the week. We will see you just a little bit later on when we take on the San Antonio Spurs in San Antonio, and hope to see you there. Hope you have a great rest of your day. This is Season Long Baller. Peace.